We all know that owning a small business means you wear many hats, but sometimes you really need an extra pair of hands. Upwork is how good companies find great and trusted freelance talent. With more than 2 decades of experience, with the simple and ambitious goal of pioneering a better way of working, companies at every stage turn to Upwork to get things done and find more flexibility in staffing key projects and initiatives. They access a global marketplace filled with top talent in IT, web dev, marketing, and more. Posting a job on Upwork is easy. With no cost to join, you can register, browse freelancer profiles, and get help drafting a job post or even book a consultation. From there, you connect with freelancers that get you and can easily hire them and take your business to the next level. Visit Upwork.com right now and post your job for free. That's Upwork.com to post your job for free and connect with top talent ready to help your business grow. That's UPWORK.com, Upwork.com.
You are about to listen to the Dr. Daliah Show. Sassy, stimulating medical talk radio. Any medical advice Dr. Daliah Wax gives on her show should not be substituted for an actual visit to your medical provider. And now, here's Dr. Daliah.
We are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-DOC-DALI, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So we have some more updates on this morning's school shooting at a Catholic church. Has reported previously 2 children are dead, multiple others being currently treated in hospitals, 2 in very critical condition after a suspect shot through the church windows at Annunciation Catholic Church as the students in their first week of school were going to Wednesday morning mass. While they sat in their pews, multiple rounds of bullets from a semi-automatic weapon showered them, and an 8-year-old child and a 10-year-old child were killed. We have 17 other people who have been injured, 14 of them children. 2 are currently in critical condition. The shooter is dead. He died of a self-inflicted gunshot wound. The shooter was in his early 20s, has still not been publicly identified, was in black, armed with a rifle, shotgun, and a pistol. The police are still investigating a possible motive. And very scarily, he had attempted to block the doors with 2x4s. So it appears he shot from outside, wanted to barricade them in while he shot at them. Some of the injured are as young as 6. CNN is reporting that 11 patients were transported to Hennepin County Medical Center. 9 of them at 9 of them were children, age 6 to 14, and then 2 adults. So the mayor is on standby, Governor Walz, everybody's at the scene, and police and FBI, and it's still an ongoing situation, but the shooter is dead. You know, we don't know who this person is, but we're being told, Daily Mail says he has no known criminal history. The suspect's vehicle currently being searched. There was a smoke bomb firework found on the premises. Not sure if he wanted to put that in there and then I just don't know what his plan was. But he did open fire through the windows of the Annunciation Catholic Church on 54th Street around 8:15 a.m. local time. And then he barricaded these doors by 2x4s to prevent people from being able to escape. Shooting through these windows, this was deliberate. This was act of terrorism. Who was it? And, you know, he decides to shoot himself. And you'll see this with shooters, where they go through all this planning to kill others. And then some of them will be apprehended, and others will say, all right, I'm done, and I'm going to shoot myself. Why can't you shoot yourself before you go and shoot others? I don't want to see anybody commit suicide, but if you want to take people with you, can't you commit suicide first? What is their thinking? if you're going to leave this earth, this is why I believe in heaven and hell and because I would, if I'm going to leave this earth, I want to go to heaven. So wouldn't you want your last moments on earth good? But these are people who I don't believe have a spirituality or a religion or faith. These are individuals who I think are severely mentally ill, and we don't get to interview them. We don't get to talk to them. They might leave a manifesto. They might leave a drawing. We might have some witness accounts of what they were like in school or at home, but we don't really know, were they hearing voices? Were they told they need to do this? Were they recruited by a terrorist organization? Why would they do this? And then they leave. They kill themselves and leave. Kill yourself before you go to the church windows. That's when you need to off yourself. But they don't do that. And they shot at kids. See, they knew what they were doing. Just the thought, and I'm not trying to play detective here, but most masses, right, are, visited, Saturdays and Sundays. Most Catholic masses. I've been to Catholic mass multiple times. Saturdays and Sundays are the most common days. You can have mass throughout the week, which means they knew this was a school mass. That means he wanted to target the kids, which means he knew, he had some association, some relationship, either with the school, with those families, with that church. It's a random area for did he say, well, I want to go to this school, shoot up this school. Oh, looks like I need to change course. They're all in mass today. I don't think it was random. This was targeted. I think he knew what he was doing and who he wanted to kill. Why? We're talking 6-year-olds, 8-year-olds, 10-year-olds. You see a lot of high school shootings too, because people will have gone to that high school. They, felt if this person was in his 20s, was he a prior student? I mean, the school had been around since the 1920s, or the church. So we're going to be trying to figure out the motive, and it's so important to figure out the motive because we want to prevent the next shooter. Whether we need more National Guard, more law enforcement, security at every church and every school. And our thoughts and prayers right now are with the families. I can't imagine what they're going through, and these kids with the look of horror as they're leaving mass and they're leaving the scene. But we have got to get into the heads of who these people are and why before they take their lives, they decide to take a bunch of people with them. Or do they decide to take a bunch of people with them? They think they're going to be able to flee and they can't. And they go, you know what? I'm out. But for those of you thinking of doing the next school shooting, could you please, off yourself first? 1-877-DOC-DALIAH.
This is an urgent announcement for anyone that's $10,000 or more in debt. Before you make another minimum payment, you need to know there are special programs that can completely free you of your debt. Total Financial Freedom can help you become debt-free in months instead of years. Resolve your credit card debt, signature loans, department store cards, internet loans, and timeshares. Call Total Financial Freedom now at 800-878-6020 for a free consultation. For 16 years, Total Financial Freedom has helped thousands get out of debt. You can feel confident when calling because Total Financial Freedom is A+ rated by the Better Business Bureau. Battling for years and years stuck in the endless cycle of minimum payments could take decades. You have the right to get your debt resolved and substantially reduce your monthly payments. Call Total Financial Freedom now at 800-878-6020. That's 800-878-6020. 800-878-6020.
Let's face it, guys. We're living in times where the truth is becoming more suppressed and censorship is increasing at an alarming rate, especially on social media platforms. It's Clyde, and I want to tell you about a safe and secure digital playground we put together just for you. It's aftermath.media. You get access to thousands of Ground Zero archives and podcasts, along with our private social media groups with your basic membership starting at only $7 a month. Each subscription includes tech support, access to the RSS feeds, along with our own chat room and Telegram channel. In addition, the premium membership includes research study groups, webinars, a document and movie library, a live video stream of Ground Zero, a monthly Zoom chat with me, and other bonus content. Be sure to check out our yearly specials as well. Sign up today while you're thinking about it. Sign up at aftermath.media. Again, that's aftermath.media.
Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-Dr. Dali, 1-877-DOCDALI. Big thanks to Talk Media Network for making the show happen. Big thanks to Daniel, our producer, and big thanks to you all for tuning in. We really do appreciate it. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter or X at Dr. Daliah, Facebook, The Dr. Daliah Show, and on YouTube, click like and subscribe. So we are being told that a Chinese cancer doctor, researcher, has been accused of trying to steal sensitive research from an American medical lab and bring it back to China. Allegedly, Yunhai Li, 35 years old, according to Daily Mail, was stopped by a customs official at Houston Airport on July 9th when he tried to board a flight back to China. On his laptop, investigators found research on a breast cancer vaccine he was developing. Now, he was released and then arrested this Friday. Previous Friday. The 35-year-old has now been charged with theft of trade secrets, a felony, tampering with a government record. He apparently entered the U.S. on a scholar visa, had been working at the University of Texas MD Anderson Cancer Research Lab in Houston as a postdoctoral fellow since 2022. The vaccine research was funded by the NIH and the Department of Defense. So now this makes him a government contractor or employee. In a sense, he signed an NDA, a non-disclosure agreement, before he joined the lab and said he did not have foreign research affiliations or funding. But according to the affidavit, he was receiving funding from the National Natural Science Foundation of China and secretly doing research for Chongqing Medical University. Following his arrest, he did confess in a sworn statement to the police that he stole the research because he felt his work was going to waste. Now, you see, I would have said, I'm just going to go home and see family. I'm bringing my laptop because my Candy Crush app is on there. And that's what it's my laptop. Oops, I got some stuff from the university. I wasn't going to access it. All good. But apparently he did confess. And he insisted that the research is a product of my efforts over the last 3 years. He says, I believe I have a right to possess and retain this data. Lee said he downloaded 90 gigabytes of research data when the project was about 70% complete, and he uploaded it to Chinese cloud service Baidu. When administrators at the Houston lab confronted him, he convinced them he had deleted the data, but concealed it on this server. Now, the researcher had abruptly quit July 1, began to prepare to go back to China, and then continue the project there at Chongqing Medical University. According to Daily Mail, he claimed his boss there had contacted the NIH and MD Anderson administrators on his behalf to get permission for him to continue the project in China, but never heard back. Lee wrote that he feared all that work would go to waste and that it would be denied. He said he was hoping that the CBP would not discover the information on his electronics. So he might face further charges. Now, I know some of you are thinking, this is a breast cancer vaccine. why is this, that high tech, well, we're talking about China here. Okay. These guys are pretty smart. They're pretty innovative. They're pretty creative, and they're also untrustworthy, especially from a lab point of view. And if there is a science or a template or a protocol or process that they could use for something else. Now, I think this is beyond breast cancer. If they need the methods, if they need to learn about what we do, they look at our research. If they want to learn at what we have at our disposal for our patients, they want access to that. Or if they want to take that science and manipulate it for their own means and to gain a function. It's not just something as simple as, well, they want to cure breast cancer research too. They want, to cure breast cancer. So, just give them the information. There's more to that. When we have a cure, we make it loud and clear. And, there's pharmaceutical companies that go on the record so their stocks go up, and there's, it's well known. We're not going to hide something. I mean, do I think we have antidotes and things that might not be public knowledge in case something happens to our public officials or politicians? Yes, I really do believe there's a lot of bunkers and things that they keep from the public, because they want to protect the government. Government always wants to protect the government. So I'm sure remember with Ebola, we had our first patient back in, was it 2012, who was in Texas, who had Ebola. And the report said that we ran out of the Ebola treatment ZMapp. And I was talking to you guys on air going, how did we run out if he is the first patient on American soil to now have Ebola? Even though he had traveled to West Africa, came back, this was our first patient with Ebola, and we already ran out of ZMapp. Well, it's because they probably stored it for the politicians. So we know this stuff happens. But we need to be very, very careful about the research we're doing and how it goes back to others. Lee right now is under federal investigation, could face federal charges of wire fraud, theft of federal funds, abuse of official capacity. He may face 2 to 10 years in prison, fines up to $10,000 for the state felony charge alone, and another year for the misdemeanor charge. Now, he was released on $5,000 bail and ordered to surrender his passport. MD Anderson is now working with relevant authorities. So what really stinks about this case is, I've worked with individuals of multiple different ethnicities and backgrounds, and we do welcome the integration and the collaboration with other countries on research. But now people are going to distrust China even more. And they're going to distrust Americans that are working here and concerned of their relationship or and it's people like this that ruin it for science and ruin it for everybody else. And we have a lot of work to do. And our research is still it's really failing behind where we should be at this point. And part of the reason why is money, bureaucracy, politics. I mean, I can't tell you how many times in previous jobs I had, I was like, well, I think we could do this. Let me work on this. Let me get something fast tracked. No. It just doesn't work that way. Like that Eli Lilly drug. We have a possible another Eli Lilly drug for weight loss and for diabetes. It could be at least a year before we even see it on the market. That's how things go, especially with the government. But stealing sensitive research, uploading it, it's going to make America, and it's going to make these universities, or maybe not the universities, but it's going to make these research centers really second guess who we're working with. And I've been in multiple different universities. I always go and visit the labs, the science labs, engineering labs, etc. I don't see a lot of Americans. I do see many, people of different ethnicities. And that's our universities are what they call melting pots. I mean, we have people of all over. But the now the concern is you're going to have a student, with Chinese or even Asian descent and not going to be trusted. That's a problem. We also have to do a better job of encryption. So I used to work at the EPA. Now, we didn't have laptops back then. So whatever work I did at the EPA, I then left there. What happens at the EPA stays at the EPA. What happens at the lab stays in the lab. But like what we saw with COVID and politicians working from home, now all of a sudden everybody has sensitive information and classified information at their house because they worked from home. Maybe that needs to stop. Now, how does it work right now with the government? Well, with the government, they have your work computers, you have your work emails. You can't access a lot of that at home. If you do, there's certain procedures and processes and passwords, and the government will know and will have to also sanction it and allow it. But there's a process. But the way things are now with computers and working remotely, and mind you, I like working from home, but this is I think not the first time this has happened, and I believe this problem is much bigger than people are letting on it is. 1-877 Doc Daliah.
At Hot Shot Secret, we share the science behind common diesel problems and their solutions. For example,
diesel fuel cetane levels.
In many states, the cetane rating in diesel fuel is 42 to 45. Most diesel engines operate more efficiently with a cetane rating of 48 to 50. One treatment of Hot Shot Secret Diesel Extreme will raise your cetane 7 points, increase fuel economy, and improve cold starts. Due to a cleaner burn, there are less hydrocarbons and particulate matter in your exhaust. This reduces the blockage of your diesel particulate filter. Using Diesel Extreme generates 83% less DPF regeneration. The 6-in-1 Diesel Extreme formula also includes the most concentrated detergent on the market, lubricity enhancer, water demulsifier, rust and corrosion inhibitors, and a fuel stabilizer.
Hot Shot Secret Diesel Extreme is available nationwide at truck stops, fine farm and auto stores, and online at hotshotsecret.com. Hot Shot Secret, powered by science.
We are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877 Doc Dali, 1-877 DOCDALI. So one of the most uninteresting controversies of the year has been the whole Cracker Barrel logo issue. And we are being told today that Cracker Barrel is going to go back to its old logo after there was a poop storm and all this drama for them to change their logo to a quote-unquote simpler form. And this is interesting. And even though I think it's the most uninteresting controversy of the day and of the week and of the month and of the year and probably of the decade, because boy, have we had some doozies. There's some things I do want to talk about with this because it is really interesting. At first, when I heard Cracker Barrel was changing the logo and simplifying it, that's what they do. That's what, Pepsi has changed the logo. Coca-Cola has, McDonald's. People update their logos. Why do they update their logos? Maybe they find it cheaper to do if it's less intricate. Maybe they want to make a logo that's, easily identifiable. Maybe they want the attention and they want the media of, it's great advertising. You do something new, you could offset the costs of that by all this media attention. So there's a lot of different reasons why, and companies do it all the time. They change their logo all the time. Even my logo was changed a couple times over the past year. I've just been too lazy to change it, and I really don't even know what my logo is now. I think it's a googly-eyed doctor. And I like googly eyes. But I think what made this difference was the why. When Cracker Barrel, I think it was the CEO that said, let me see, I think there was a quote where they need to attract, I guess, the younger, I guess they did it to attract more of the younger generation or a different, shall we say, group. It implied that it was, that they were trying to, shall we say, from what was inferred, become more woke. Let's shed the old farm-like Midwest Southern feel and try to look more modern. And it got a lot of backlash because, people liked it. And why would something like this get all this backlash? Don't other people have bigger fish to fry? Aren't there other things that people need to be worried about than a restaurant logo? I've only been to that restaurant maybe 3 times in my whole life. I think it was there's now, I guess, a Cracker Barrel in town. I remember how excited everybody was about it. And I go, I've eaten there. It's nice. It's good. I remember the seats being uncomfortable because they were wood, and I kind of need some cushion, even though I got a lot of cushion, for my cushion, but I remember that, but it was good. I'm not going to, break down doors to and fight traffic to go and eat there again if there's other choices. So it's a good restaurant, but and it was nice, and it is a more unique feel, which I think is cool. But I think the reason why this became a big deal, and I keep saying this is one of the things that has really kind of traumatized, I think, the American public, is thinking that they're being misinterpreted, where somebody is not reading the room. And you have a lot of individuals who spend money, and so if I'm a customer, I don't really need, to be thanked. I don't, need the honor and the glory and the, acknowledgement. But there's a lot of individuals who go, look, you don't understand. I'm spending a lot of money to frequent your place, and I'm doing it because this is what I like and this is what I want. And if you change that, you're going to lose me. And I've given you a lot of money over the years. This is the experience I thought, I could have. And I don't really care that much, but some people do. And they also feel like there's now this big push to quit changing everything to modern or to woke. Why can't we have some old school? And this pushback is because a lot of people freaked out over the last few years where they couldn't say Happy Mother's Day. They had to say Happy Birthing Parent. Or they had to now, rather than call people Mr. or Mrs., just call them by their first name, which is still, people are still struggling with that, where they don't want to get in trouble for calling you Mr. or Mrs., so they call you by your first name. And somebody's like, why are you calling me? You don't address me by my first name. You address me as Mr. or Mrs. And so I think a lot of people are trying to turn back the time, not where we were biased and discriminatory and non, inclusive and et cetera, but turn back the time where you got in trouble for something that was common. Like that superintendent who had interviewed, it was either a superintendent or a principal who interviewed with faculty for a job. And the 2 ladies who had been guiding him through the application process, he said, thank you, ladies. And he didn't get the job because they said, why did he assume we were female gendered? He should have asked us for our pronouns, etc. And so when people hear this, they're like, okay, I can't be losing my job. I can't be not getting a job. And it really frustrated people. So I think the backlash that you're now going to see if they think a company is going woke, and I don't really know much about Cracker Barrel because, like I said, I don't go there a lot, but apparently Cracker Barrel has been getting this stereotype. I think, was it Joy Reid who said Republicans should only go to who was it? No, there was somebody who said Republicans should only go to Cracker Barrel because no other company, they're not supporting the people who work at other companies. I forgot who said that. I thought that was Joy Reid, but I could be wrong. So Cracker Barrel starts getting this stereotype that it's a Republican place. I don't know why. And then Cracker Barrel wants to change that, starts to go, no, we're going to change our logo. We're going to change the way we do things. And then they get a backlash. And the backlash was so bad that their stock dropped so badly that now they have to return to the old logo. I don't care about logos. I don't care about Cracker Barrel. But what I care about is public sentiment. And I care about us feeling like things don't have to be this dramatic. And somehow it got this dramatic. And I could be naive and wrong. But when we had the Al Gore, George Bush election, I voted for Gore. I voted for Bush. All right. Who cares? Let's have a beer. When do we get back to those days? When do we get back to, I don't like politics. Let's just move on. You do you. I do me. Let's go have a beer. Why can't we go back to that? And you're seeing families split up. You're seeing friends split up. Why does everything have to be so polarizing? When McDonald's changes their logo, do we see all this drama? When Pepsi updates their logo, there's logo updates all the time. But when a company feels like they have to put out a message so that politically they get some points or they protect themselves from the cancel culture or whatever, now it becomes a mess. And I always recommend go back to no politics. Let's just be neutral. Let's just stay away from politics. But that's not what happens. Very interesting. When in Florida, they had that bill where they didn't want sex ed to start until middle school. They didn't want 8-year-olds to be learning about sex. And then somehow somebody started to call it the Don't Say Gay bill. But when it was about sex ed in schools and when, to start it and what subjects, are appropriate, whatever, Disney originally said, look, because people were like, Disney, you need to do something. You need to step up. They're like, we don't get involved in politics. Our job is to manage Disney World. Well, I heard that the employees and the public backlash that Disney World wouldn't take a stand and wouldn't stay neutral was so bad that they had to then get involved. Well, and then it hurts Disney. So let's just try, politics are politics, but let business do business. Because remember, who's visiting you? Americans. So be American. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY. Don't go away.
Carl Amari here to tell you about our newest website for old-time radio lovers. It's 100radioshows.com. At this site, there are 5 old-time radio shows waiting for you to download free as our gift to you. And be sure to browse the additional 700 old-time radio shows available to you for 70% off by using the promo code RADIO at checkout. This is a limited-time offer, so log on to 100radioshows.com. That's 100radioshows.com.
Have you ever thought you'd like to buy and sell houses but didn't know how or where to get the money? My name is Ron LeGrand, and over the past 40 years, I've bought over 3,000 houses without using my money or credit and taught thousands to do the same. Today, even in a virtual environment, we buy nice houses in nice neighborhoods using no banks, realtors, contractors, or other costly entanglements, and build huge cash flow and wealth without the hassle of tenants, all without credit and little or no money. You don't need a license or experience, and I'll show you exactly how it's done. Text FREE to 99799, and I'll send you my free training. I promise you I'll change the way you think about real estate and open the door to a new lifestyle that doesn't involve risk or rehabs and can quickly replace your current income. Text FREE to 99799 and let me show you how to take your life back and build cash flow and wealth from your home. That's FREE to 99799. Again, FREE to 99799.
As an organ donor, your story doesn't have to end. The good in you can live on. In fact, you could save up to 8 lives and restore sight and health for many more. Sign up right now online as an organ, eye, and tissue donor. You'll be happy you did. And just maybe, someone else will be happy too. Go to organdonor.gov. It saves lives. U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Health Resources and Services Administration.
Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-Dr. Dali, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So the U.S. has confirmed its first human case of screwworm. There is such a thing as a screwworm. Quit giggling. It's called the New World screwworm. And the U.S. has confirmed its first case. It's a flesh-eating parasite who has creeped over here from South America and put the screws on us. The Center for CDC and NPR is reporting that the case was confirmed by the Maryland Department of Health, along with the CDC, on August 4th, in a patient who had returned from travel to El Salvador. According to Department of Health and Human Services spokesperson Andrew Nixon told NPR. He said this is the first human case of travel-associated New World screwworm myiasis, or parasitic infestation of fly larvae, from an outbreak-affected country identified in the United States. So it's not that the screwworm necessarily made the crawl and the trek from South America. That would take them millions of years. It's a long, long walk. But if they get in to our baggage or get on our bodies and we bring them over, then that's an issue. They say currently the risk to public health in the United States from this introduction is very low. Personally, what screws us over more is not the screwworm, but politicians. So that's still, to me, the biggest threat. Now, David McAllister, a spokesperson of the Maryland Department of Health, told NPR that the individual was a resident of Maryland. He has recovered from the screwworm infection. They said the investigation confirmed there is no indication of transmission to any other individuals or animals. But this is a timely reminder for healthcare providers, livestock owners, and others to maintain vigilance through routine monitoring. I'm going to tell you right now, if I accused a person online of having screwworm, they would get so mad. I remember diagnosing monkeypox, Mpox, on somebody, and they were so mad. And I'm like, just go and get checked out. It could be Mpox. I don't have Mpox. They did. So the New World screwworm is a species of parasitic fly that you usually see in South America, but we are seeing it also in the Caribbean. The infestation occurs when the fly larvae decide to feed on the tissue or flesh of warm-blooded animals. Usually we see this in livestock, but very rarely they could feed on us humans. It's a fly. So it's not a bacteria. This is an insect. And it's the larvae that does the damage. This is according to Max Scott, a professor in the Department of Entomology and Plant Pathology at North Carolina State University. Now, if a screwworm does sink its teeth into you, it can hurt. It can be pretty painful. You can actually die from a screwworm infection if left untreated. Once an infestation starts, it attracts more flies. They lay more eggs. And depending where the wound is, the maggots can make their... Oh, come on. You guys are watching. You watch The Walking Dead, and I can't talk about this. The maggots can make their way into vulnerable tissue like the brain, or the wound could get quite big, and then you get sepsis. Now, you cannot necessarily give screwworm to somebody else per se, but I do believe that if you touch somebody with this, you could get it. Now, usually this pest is a much bigger issue to livestock. According to NPR, we have been detecting this in cattle farms in Mexico. And so if this is usually a South American, maybe Caribbean issue, now that we're already seeing it in Mexico, it's getting closer to the U.S. and Mexico border. So federal authorities are already taking a series of steps to eliminate the threat. So the screwworm is a blue-gray blowfly, and looks, I need you guys to quit giggling. Come on, let's just be mature about this. It's a blue-gray blowfly and look very similar to black flies found in the United States, but the difference is screwworms, specifically females, right? I understand there's a lot of content here, okay? They lay their eggs in live animals, usually in a wound. However, they do like the nose and the nasal cavity, and that's scary because then they have an easy access up to the brain. The females can lay 200 eggs at a time. The eggs eat, and especially as the larvae hatch, and they can eat the animal alive. After feeding, the larvae fall to the ground, burrow into the soil, and then they emerge as adult screwworm flies, and then they go and land on somebody else, lay eggs, and continue the cycle. They are named after the screw-like way they burrow into tissue with their sharp mouth hooks. Their Latin name, Cochleomya hominivorax, means man-eater. He's a man-eater. Okay. Or she's a man-eater, sorry. So it was named after a sort of unfortunate number of cases in the French penal colony of Devil's Island back in the 19th century. Again, human cases are rare, but we are seeing them in South America. In June of 2024, according to the NPR, U.S. Embassy in Costa Rica confirmed that the country's 7th case since 2023 and the first human death since the 90s. In Nicaragua, the U.S. Embassy said that Nicaraguan officials confirmed 124 cases in the past year. So screwworm used to be in the U.S., in Florida, Texas during the summer. They even saw it as far north as the Dakotas. But we eradicated it. How? Well, back in the 1950s, scientists with the U.S. Department of Agriculture pioneered this method of combating the screwworms known as a sterile insect technique. It's one of the greatest success stories of the USDA in the 20th century, according to Dr. Scott. He said instead of using broad-spectrum insecticides, they decided to use the pest itself as a control agent. They mass-reared insects inside factories, sterilizing them with radiation, and then released them either from the ground or by, I guess, planes that fly very precise routes. And this is kind of where we got that idea with our mosquitoes. If we genetically engineer mosquitoes whose progeny will die off, then they won't be able to increase in population. So the females would ground mate with the sterile male. And they said if the female's on the ground mate with a sterile male, at least with the screwworm, that's all they'll mate with. So the female will not produce offspring. This technique managed to eradicate the screwworm by 1966. Then Mexico followed suit by the 70s, Central America in the early 2000s. Now, there was a small outbreak in the Florida Keys back in 2017. They did the same thing. So I guess they were able to push this back out of America. But now it's coming back. Panama, Costa Rica, Nicaragua, Honduras documented new cases. So I do feel that, we will be able to have control over this. Right now, the U.S. has briefly halted live cattle imports from Mexico since November. Why? Because of that positive case. They lifted the ban in February, but then they reinstated it on a month-to-month basis in May with Agriculture Secretary Brooke Rowland citing in a news release that this rapid spread of New World screwworm, in Mexico is being watched, and they had detected it in farms as far north as Oaxaca and Veracruz. That's about 700 miles from the U.S.-Mexico border. So we just need to review and evaluate and inspect as these animals are coming in. But in an August letter to Brooke Rowlands, they used USDA estimates to calculate that a contemporary outbreak could cause a total economic loss of more than $10.6 billion. You don't want to eat animals or be around anything like that could have a screwworm, especially with a human. There's a sterile fly production facility at an Air Force base in Edinburgh, Texas. The USDA is producing 300 million sterile flies a week. Good for them. Half a century eradication campaign was run from a facility in Mexico that could produce 500 million sterile flies per week. But that got shut down in 2012. So, we have the ability, and I love the idea of non-insecticides. I like less chemicals. So if they could do this by reducing the population a different way that's safer, I'm all for that. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY. Don't go away. guys, it's Dr. Daliah. Fantasy football season is coming, but sadly, too many of you are taking the bench while the country takes part in one of the most exciting and lucrative industries out there. Don't know how to play? Well, huddle up and listen. Paul Kalikas and I have written a fantasy football pocket guide for beginners. This book walks you through the basics and shows you how simple and lucrative joining or creating a fantasy football team can be. Read our fantasy football pocket guide for beginners found on Amazon or follow the links on X and Facebook. That's Fantasy Football Pocket Guides for Beginners. Don't be left out.
Increase fuel economy up to 7.9% with Hot Shot Secret Gasoline Extreme, the solution to maximize your engine's performance and fuel economy. Whether you're driving a sports car or a daily commuter, Gasoline Extreme is specially formulated with PEA to deep clean. Don't settle for an average driving experience. Upgrade to Hot Shot Secret Gasoline Extreme and go further on each tank. Order now on Amazon or HotShotSecret.com. Hot Shot Secret, powered by science.